Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final presentation of MEDIAE, the online masterclass on transmedia storytelling led by Salvatore Vitale. I'm Giuseppe Oliverio, the founding and artistic director of PhMuseum, and I'll be co-hosting the day together with Salvatore. The idea is that every participant will have 10 minutes to show their work done over the program. It's been 8 months online since October, pretty much. And then there's going to be some time, for question, around 5 minutes per participant. So everybody who's following at home can write in the chat, and we can see if there are interesting questions to share. I just want to thank Salvatore for all the work done. Maybe not all of you knows that we met through the PhMuseum Photography grant. Salvatore won the first prize in 2017. And then we started to getting to know each other. He came to do a physical workshop at PhMuseum Days in 2023. And since then is leading this masterclass. So it's nice to see, how things develop over the years. And well, I wish we can all, keep in contact after this masterclass. Also because now we are doing a many nice event in person, like the festival and the photo book fair in October. And but yeah, now it's the time. I don't know if Salvo, you want to say something before we start?
Yeah, I can definitely maybe say a couple of words about this class this year. So it's for me it's like this was the third edition of MEDIAE, which is a very interesting experience also for me personally because it's like talking about transmedia storytelling online in this type of setup doesn't sound easy, but actually every year I think it shows that it's very possible. And at the same time, I always appreciate, and especially this year, I really appreciate the openness of all of you guys and the fact that it was like very constructive uh, dialogues we had over the past months, but at the same time to see how all of you accepted a lot of challenges because I know that I'm challenging you a lot. But really, I felt that there was like this very, very, very good attitude towards it, this very great openness. And I think that the works that you produced and this idea or this suggestion I gave you to really focus on the process rather than on the final result, you really embraced it. And I think this was also very important for me to see how it helped you to somehow go very much a lot out of your comfort zone and really embrace madness and complexity, which led you to really come with amazing ideas. And I'm very happy to hear today like how you prepared your presentations. But most of all, I want to thank you all guys for your participation into it. It was very enriching also for me. And of course, I want to thank PH Museum and Rosa, who is not with us today, for the amazing support and for making like this type of program that is pretty courageous and at the same time, I think it's very straightforward, which is something that is very much needed, I think, in the photography field.
Yeah, I totally agree. Only the brave, we're also accepting a new application for the coming years, and a lot of artists saying, yeah, maybe I want to do it, but I'm not sure. So yeah, it's not to be taken for granted, to do such program. And talking about braveness, we have the first brave participant to introduce her work. That is Maria Sarafi. Welcome, Maria. I leave you introduce your work. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. So let me maybe start sharing already my screen. Okay. So, can you see my screen? Perfect. So maybe let's introduce myself first. So hi, I'm Maria Sarafi. I'm a Greek-Swiss visual artist with an art practice in photography, analog and digital, in video and sound. And I love also experimenting with scanograms and mixed media techniques. I'm an ICP Creative Practices alumni and have a software engineering background also, and started also a master's in media design. And my starting point for MEDIAE has been my Wunderkammer project. For this project, I imagined a world without humans anymore, where I navigate through space to collect my memories, my interpretations of science, the natural world, the built environment, to collect the remains of human history and all that in order to preserve it in my own Wunderkammer or cabinet of curiosities. And we are really living in a very anthropocentric world. So actually, Wunderkammer for me is a personal reflection on the meaning of our existence and the traces we are leaving behind. So joining MEDIAE, I was really very happy about it, and I wanted really to challenge myself and go even farther beyond photography, and also reconnect with my computer engineering background. So as you can see, I worked during the program on an Arduino, for example, circuit to create a small projection unit, either for still images or for creating animation through motor rotation. And I imagined all that housed inside a soft robot, Aeripon, which would be like the companion of the last survivor that I imagined in this Wunderkammer world. And I also, in the context of the program, I wanted also to go beyond the 2D universe and explore more and more a 3D universe, and also continuing working with scanograms, but now working more and more with 3D scanning, and so also creating digital assets from 2D images, and all that in order to kind of create the humanoid, the last survivor or warrior of life that I imagined for my project. And then another also very interesting aspect was really to work on how I would present my Wunderkammer project and on the exhibition installation. So I was inspired by the zoetrope or wheel of life. And so I imagined a wheel-like installation of 7 different spaces, as you can see on the right. And so the visitor would kind of explore and have a multimedia experience in this space by following a path through different entrances and exits. And as we can see, I have some other images. So I really imagined it to be really like a dark universe with luminous objects like video screens or light boxes or objects that are illuminated. And in the middle, you can see that if it would be to be in an outdoor public space, then we would have walls surrounding it and giving even more this spirit of like walking inside a labyrinth. And the exhibition is structured in 4 themes: cosmos, memories, Wunderkammer, and into the light. And this is a quote that I love from Ari Shelley that really kind of represents also the spirit of the exhibition. My dreams were all my own. I counted for them to nobody. And then in the first space, I really imagined having on the wall a light box, as a 50 to 70 centimeters light box. And then representing kind of the new cosmos we are now in. And then in the next space, I would have on a pedestal this iRibbon projection unit. And just to have an idea, this kind of, the projection on the wall would look like this. It's, and the idea is to have also, I work on it to have also more options, kind of to change also the different discs, so to be able to kind of to interact and change what you project on the wall. And this here we enter kind of in the universe of memories of the world we have left behind. And then again, in this spirit, in the next space, I imagine having like a 32 inches video screen. We can watch a few minutes of, a few seconds, sorry, for time reasons. So it's a video entitled Zoetrope also, because it's this feeling pink like inside the Wheel of Life also. Sorry, I have to move on for time reasons, as I mentioned. So, and then in the next space, we enter kind of again in this spirit of, in this theme of new cosmos, and like seeing like a soft robot, iRibbon companion, and then also kind of a new type of a forest. I imagine actually this image to be kind of on vinyl and covering the whole wall. And then moving on then to the fifth space, where on a video screen we could kind of get introduced to the last humanoid living still. And then we would enter in the middle of the Wheel of Life. I don't know if you remember, there was like an hexagonal central space. And in this space, the idea was we enter into the Wunderkammer or cabinet of curiosities. So there would be a selection of curiosities. And then this would be really at the heart of the exhibition installation. And then exiting this space, then we would really exit into the light. And actually, the visitor would walk on the clouds because there would be a video projection on the floor. And generally, with this exhibition and this exhibition idea, the idea is that it's kind of itself like enclosing the Wunderkammer space, but on the same time, the Zoetrope, the wheel, is kind of also part of the Wunderkammer collection. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm now open to your questions. Yeah.
Okay, Maria, maybe I can ask you a question about
Yes.
process, because I think that with you was very interesting to start from an idea and then it really evolved and developed, and also you've been really experimenting with materials, not only physical but also digital. I wanted to know what was for you the turning point. Like, when did you feel that finally you had a direction? Like, how did it come?
I would say that already when we had this session, where you asked us really to kind of starting working on a story and kind of find a structure about what we want to tell with our project. I think this helped me already to kind of at least, even if it's still like a in a non-linear universe, already at least to kind of identify some themes, like the themes that I mentioned, to at least kind of starting structuring in a way what I want to present. And I also another very important turning point, and I have to say, I really love the idea about how to present and really coming up with the zoetrope idea for the space. It was really because of the program. Before the program, I was always kind of limited in kind of, okay, how I present it, really not thinking. I felt that I really, for the first time, thought more outside the box, and really that the installation could be something, the exhibition something even more, even an exhibit itself. Really, for me, also the whole discussion and the examples you showed us was really a turning point too.
Thank you, Maria. And I also wanted to know how your background, for instance, in IT, kind of contributed to this project, because I think that you did a good job in putting together your different type of expertise in order to come with, for instance, the Arduino installation, but then you have like very photographic type of work, then you have more video work and sound. So how that background somehow like contributed to your final result?
I really felt that I was really waiting for it to have really the opportunity, because I will be honest, I was before joining MEDIAE really kind of frustrated with the fact that, okay, I really, at one point in my life, like 5 years ago, I really decided to change kind of my whole career and what I was doing, and really dedicate myself full-time to photography by joining also ICP. But I felt too disconnected from what I was my life before it. And I don't know, media kind of was like a turn-on point. Like now you have the right, and you have the right context to feel free and connect these two disconnected worlds. I don't know. It really inspired me to become whole again. I don't know. It sounds crazy, but it's the reality, really.
That's good. I really was hoping at the beginning that you would come to a point in which you would put your different expertise together in order to work on your project. And I saw that it went pretty easy. Like there was not much discussion about it. You just implemented it along the way, and I think that was like a winning solution. Also because I think that we said the Arduino installation that you presented really works well in the context of the whole story and in connection with all the pieces in the work. So I think that it was in the end a very good solution.
Yeah. I want to really thank you, Salvatore, because your classes, but also yourself, and your work has been really an inspiration. And also, I want to thank also my classmates. It was really inspiring, the whole thing being a part of this group.
Thank you, Maria, for your contribution.
Thank you.
Also.
Thanks so much, Maria. Great presentation, great start. Yeah, let's give the word to the next participant, that is Sunniva Hestenes. Welcome, Sunniva.
Thank you. Just gonna share my screen. See. So my name is Sunniva Hestenes. I'm Norwegian. I'm currently based in Denmark. I hold a bachelor's degree in fine art photography from Sweden, and I work as a tattoo artist on the side. And my process during this masterclass has been quite fragmented, and my initial intention was actually to take a break from this project altogether. But I realized that in order to come to terms with my relationship to my mother, I needed to engage not only with what was left behind after her death, but also with the life I lived with her. I'll therefore be presenting the work A Tear for Someone Undeserving, and this presentation will summarize the core of the project as well as where it's heading. The project's initial shape was a photographic book published in 2024, and it was a direct consequence of my mother's fatal alcoholic overdose. She had been struggling with her addiction for most of my life. When she passed away in 2021, I decided to try to make sense of a grief that was more so filled with relief than actual sorrow. I structured it in a non-linear way, selecting photographs that functioned as proof of her addiction, as well as omens of her death, essentially combining the documentation of real life with an ethereal alternative world, trying to come to terms with the spectrum of emotions left behind by the death of an alcoholic mother. The middle section of the book included a small selection of photographs that I took when I was 5, essentially documenting my dearest belongings: a TV, a chessboard, Bratz doll, pencil case, drawings, and my mother. This was to include a child's perspective, which is often forgotten within the context of addiction. This perspective is also what I mainly focused on during this time. The project has since then taken many different forms, but primarily focused on the aspects of grief. And what I realized during this masterclass is that this, in retrospect, isn't enough. The complexity of parental addiction is difficult to fully understand when you haven't experienced it yourself. So my goal has been to figure out how to better encapsulate the complexities of being raised by someone struggling with addiction. This brings me to a series of 10 short texts that I've written as a stand-in for photographs that haven't been taken. They will essentially function as the orientation points in the final installation, and I'll read 3 of them out loud so you get an idea of the perspective I'm referencing. I am 7 years old, lying in bed, trying to sleep. My bedroom walls are blue. I have a dream catcher over my head to get rid of my nightmares. I end my day with a prayer, asking God if he can bring my real mother back. I am convinced she has been kidnapped and replaced, as if the one watching Dr. Phil in the living room is a cruel copy. My mother is stretched out on the sofa, lying to her friends on the phone. She has a coffee mug filled with red wine on the table. Her fringe is standing up slightly, as if receiving radio signals. Her laugh is loud and mocking. I know that within 3 hours I'll have to pick her up from the floor. I close the door to my room so that the sound of her body hitting the wooden panels is quieter. I stopped being angry a while ago because it has become a useless feeling. I have no say in her relationship to the bottle or my role as a child. This is her apartment, not mine. The funeral is attended by me, my father, and my mother's family only. They all sit on the right side of the church. My father and I sit on the left. The priest mentions it after the ceremony. I have no respectful explanation. We host a brunch in the apartment. It is awkward and quiet. I decide to do the dishes in the kitchen to feel less out of place. A relative tells me that my mother didn't have an alcohol problem. I look down at the permanent wine stain on the floor, wishing that I could make a scene. I tell her that we will get an answer when the autopsy comes through. I'm thankful that she told me instead of my father. It would break his heart. The final installation is a 4.5 by 3.75 meters photographic collage. It combines archival images, childhood drawings, objects, and photographs from the time before, during, and after the funeral. Its current installation is one without hierarchy, treating all elements as equal puzzle pieces in a relationship that is impossible to fully encapsulate photographically. It's structured in a way that is fully dependent on the viewer's willingness to piece the narrative together. Some images might be overlooked or texts left unread, which essentially mirrors the societal viewpoints of addiction, as well as the family dynamic hidden within the confines of one's home. The installation is still in development, but I'll be presenting it at the Center of Photography in Copenhagen this November, where its final form will be shown. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunniva. Thank you also for sharing this story with all of us also along the masterclass. I think that with you was very interesting because, you know, you started with some ideas and then it changed and then you came back to this project that for you was finished, which is something interesting when it happens to me, you know, because especially after you make a book, it's so hard to think about like that, but there is more I can say about it. I really would like to know also to share, I mean, we spoke about it, but to share with the audience, like how does this need manifested? Like, what did it bring you to think about like adding or like developing a different, another narrative out of this story?
I think there was many different elements that led to my wish for a different installation or presentation. Both that I saw Abdulhamid Kirkir's installation of Rotting from Within, that I found that very inspiring. But I also I noticed with the feedback of the book that many people, because I mean, we as human beings try to mirror our own experiences with everything we interact with. Many people that didn't have the experience of knowing someone with addiction or having it in their family, they automatically responded to the book in a way that was very much like, "Oh, we're so sorry to hear about the loss of your mother. It must be really, really difficult," from the perspective of someone that probably had a happy childhood where the relationship wasn't as complicated. So it took many years, but I gradually became more and more aware of my own interest in actually expanding the story, because it just isn't, the loss itself isn't enough for me, because grief in general is also something that it's very non-linear and it has all of its expectations from people that haven't experienced it or have a different experience. And with this specific one, it felt like this perspective also needed to be told, also because of, I think it's 10% of all children in Norway grow up with alcoholic parents, and that's only the ones that are reported as well. So the number is much, much bigger. So I felt the need to try to tell the story to these people as well, because it's a very isolating experience.
And do you think that including a new narrative line next to the book, kind of, so the book plus what you've been developing during the masterclass are complementary so they can both live by their own, but they stay at the same time together. They give a bigger picture.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
And the book also had its own text. It's unfortunately only in Norwegian, but that was about the casket viewing. And with these new texts that have also been my main focus during this time, that will give a bigger perspective and hopefully also a bigger understanding in terms of the casket viewing text as well. So hopefully they can live on their own individually, but also speak together in a functional way.
Yeah, and I mean, just a bit of promotion that is always important. The work is going to be exhibited soon, right? Maybe you can say something about it.
Yes, it will be shown during a group exhibition in Copenhagen. And then I think it's the 19th of November. And it's called Young Danish Photography. So it will be present there. And then you can figure out if the book works with the installation or not.
Well, good luck with it. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a very good. I mean, we've been working a lot on figuring it out. So hopefully everything is going to be great.
Thank you.
Sunniva, I think we still have a minute. I have a very quick question. And first of all, congrats and thanks for sharing your story and your research. I think at some point you say something very interesting, that is, it's difficult to judge parenthood if you haven't experienced it. So are you considering to keep working on the project and possibly introduce other layer, like, I don't know, a like expand the research on the psychological part of it, both as a parent and as a kid, because like there is a lot of things that are also a bit of taboo that are not discussed, about how the body of a mother or also of a father a bit change because of the hormones, because of like you have the baby brain, like it really, your brain changes. So is that something that might interest and nurture your research, or you prefer to kind of leave this personal story more intimate, more let's say evocative, and yeah, in this non-linear presentation?
I think for now I prefer a non-linear presentation, but I mean, as I mentioned before, I tried to do something else and then it came back. So it would not surprise me if my next period with this project would be more research-based. Because it is also, I mean, the mother role alone is very, very stigmatized. So there's a lot to grasp there, I would say. Also, if you're a dysfunctional mother in some way, that's basically unheard of. So, or it's not really allowed. So I think the project will probably keep on going for many, many years. We'll see how it ends up.
That's nice to hear. And yeah, it takes times, like, so I think it's good to stop now, like present the work as you've been doing, like to present what you've been working on, and then see how it goes. Thanks, Sunniva. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The next participant to present is Silvia Bertoldo.
Here I am.
Ciao
Thank
Silvia,
you.
benvenuta.
Ciao. Let me just share my screen. Can you see it? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So, hello, my name is Silvia Bertoldo. I'm a photographer and visual artist based in the north of Italy, not too far from Venice. My practice explores contrasts and daily frailties, focusing on the precarious balances of our lives. I reflect on identity, visual memory, and the interaction between body and its environment. So today I'm presenting Pyrate, a project that arises from this exact need to investigate our boundaries. So why Pyrate? It's commonly known as fool's gold. It is a mineral that appears precious and deceives without lying. It simply requires an educated gaze to be truly recognized. And I found this to be the perfect metaphor for the digital ecosystem we experience daily. And so my process began directly with the image. I wanted to reflect on how an image moves and transforms once it's mediated by digital platforms. And so I started manipulating photographs, searching for functional and coherent visual elements that I could eventually expand into a spatial installation. I would like to precise that this work is not a critique of technology, but rather an invitation to observe a very interesting paradox. A tool born to unite us and expand our knowledge has created a completely new dimension that changes how we experience reality. The digital experience is deeply ambivalent. It connects us, but at the same time, it suspends us. And we now live in a state of constant simultaneity, where we are here and elsewhere at the very same time. And within this dynamic, also intimacy and daily life turn performative, exposed to a state of continuous visibility that reshapes the way we inhabit both our body and our thoughts. It's an immaterial dimension that moves invisibly, affecting our brain structures and hormonal flows. And now we need to recognize that we have a dual nature. We are a physical occupation and also an occupation of data. Every device and platform we carry is an external memory, a satellite of our persona that we cannot fully control. So to translate these reflections into a physical experience, I created this exhibition divided into two installations, where the unifying elements are metal and fragmentation. The first installation represents the macro space, the public space. It's a composition of metallic waves, creating an unconventional house of mirrors. Visitors can walk through normal mirrors, deforming ones, and also two-way mirrors, like the ones in police stations, where you can see yourself, but also be observed at the same time. And integrated into the structures, there are screens showing fragments of the visitor's social media, mixed with photo traps, photos taken live with hidden cameras and flashes that mimic paparazzi or speed cameras. The lighting is dim, just interrupted by flickering screen and flashes, and it creates a space of overstimulation and multiplicity, showing how our image is constantly shared, mixed with others, and exposed in the public sphere. Living this overstimulating environment, the visitors enter in second installation, second room. This represents the micro dimension, representing our intimate space. Here you can find a pool of liquid metal. Conceptually, it would be mercury, also known as quicksilver, representing an apparent calm, seeming precious, but being poisonous at the same time. But practically, for safety issues, and to allow visitors to have the unusual and safe experience of touching it, I prefer to consider gallium. Both mercury and gallium have this physical quality, which is to expand once they're heated. And so hidden beneath this metal pool, there are thermal sensors triggered by the visitor's movement in the previous room, thanks to movement sensors. And as the metal gently warms, it expands and create invisible currents beneath the surface. And floating on this surface, there are delicate origami boats carrying fragmented images of the human body. I created a maquette of this one. So the origami represent the pleasing visual forms we create to find balance and validation. And this space reflects on the lack of control we have of our own representation, something we see clearly today with apps that can digitally alter a person's image without consent. And also, I wanted to say that this is not metal. This is glass made out of sugar and painted with silver paint. So I was also thinking about the reliability of the information we consume. So in this installation, you're alone with yourself, yet your body, the origami, represented by the origami, is still moved by the invisible currents generated by people around you. So looking at the exhibition as a whole, the journey goes from the macro to the micro. You start in an overwhelming public space, dealing with the massive expansion of the information we throw into the world, and you end up in this intimate space, which is still quietly shaped by that same outside world. I think there's a mutual exchange and shared responsibility between these two spaces. And I think since we are constantly rewriting our systems of reference, and we need to keep up with this technological process, Pyrite is just a request to pause and to think about where our boundaries lie and how we can find some critical tools to navigate this fluid nature. I would like to say lots more. But yeah, I mean, if you want to know something more, support the project, or even just have a chat, here you have my contacts. And if you have any questions, or I don't know, I'm here for you. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Silvia. I'm always starting with the question, but if some of you wants to go before, feel free to do it. No, with you, Silvia, I think that the process was like a journey, a very interesting journey, because you are such a creative person with a lot of ideas. You really like to go deep, you like to explore, you have a lot of curiosity, which I think is a great attitude towards your own work and the world around you. And I'm very happy to see how in the end, really, with this process of narrowing down, you came up with this very interesting way to put together also different type of expertise and curiosity that you have that also reflect a sort of scientific nature of the work, which is also part of your background. And I would like to know, also for the audience, like, how was for you this process of really coming up with something hyper concrete that becomes like an installation, interactive, also including this, this interactive form to it, which I think was, if I remember, like a moment of, how can I say, like enlightenment, like the moment in which something sparkled and then you went.
Yeah, I think we had a tricky journey. I mean, we started with tons of ideas, and then I found some order by just allowing myself to try different paths, and even by making mistakes. And the most important thing I would say, I found some security going back to my background. As Maria said before, it's important to know where our roots lie and then start from there. And I think I I'm not able to find a precise moment of enlightenment, but I remember just printing these different body parts and start folding them. And once I saw this origami boat in my hands, that was the click. So I think sometimes I'm too much in my mind, as you told me frequently. And sometimes it's better just to try and give to your ideas a physical space rather than keeping them inside of yourself. And also by asking your questions to people around you, also to have a feedback of about what could work or what couldn't work, what could be interesting. Like, for example, inside of the first installation with the mirror house, I talked with some friends of mine, since I would like to ask permission to use social media to people visiting. This friend of mine told me, oh yeah, it would be so interesting to hear my voice or see my pictures inside of a space I've never been into before. So these are the moments when you can see something is working or it's not working.
Totally agree.
And thank you so much, Salvo, for helping me through this journey and allowing me to try something I would have never tried before, probably. Really, thank you so much. And thank you so much, guys, also for your feedbacks along the way.
Great presentation, Silvia. Great job.
Thank you.
And I think all the work we've seen so far, like I was aware of them when you presented your application for the participate in the program, and now it's so nice to see how the synthesis and how they are on point, and also at the same time how they have margin for adding again after you've done this process of synthesis. That at some point is very important. Otherwise, you keep following ideas and never. I have a question.
You get lost.
Yeah, I have a very brief question for you. I mean, because the time is almost over. But my question is: are you thinking you think it could help or be interesting to also have a layer that is kind of more, like open and because it's a bit claustrophobic, let's say, the environment. And I mean, the presentation is all dark. I don't know if in the reality the place will be all dark, and I don't know exactly. Or you think it's very important to kind of leave that sense of, being in another dimension somehow?
So the two installations I presented today are imagined in a dark space, but I was considering a third space that was designed in an opposite way. So really with really heavy lights to also have this contrast, because in these two installations, we are talking about making visible something which is invisible. And I'm also considering to expand it to do the opposite way, like bringing something which is visible, for example, our surroundings that also shapes us and we can see them, and making them kind of invisible or impalpable. So I would like to create these contrasts along the way, or also bring up other installations, for example, working with microbees or projections, where also the shadow of people visiting can interfere with the images presented. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of ways that we can follow. I
Many
think my
ideas.
brain could melt.
Okay, no, it's nice to know you're, maybe also considering that as a possible development. Thanks so much, Silvia.
Thank you, guys.
And I leave the word to Cory Dziadzio, and yeah, please, Cory, feel free to go ahead. Thanks so much and welcome.
Thank you, and thank you, Silvia. Let me share. Okay, can everyone see? Great. So I have an interactive exhibition render to walk through for the How to Burn a Memory series, which is what I've been working on for the duration of this course. Before jumping into the visualization itself, though, I just wanted to give a quick background of myself and my artistic practice. I would quickly summarize it as my work investigates the somewhat unstable borders between memory and perception, places where truth becomes more subjective.
Sorry,
And
sorry to interrupt you. I can see your desktop, I think. You have a presentation
okay,
or is correct? I see
let
a black
me.
screen with an icon of Death Stranding 2.
You know too much about me now.
Yeah.
Let me. Can you see now?
Yes, how to burn a
Great.
memory. Sorry to interrupt you.
So, no, thank you. So, as I was saying, my work really explores the border between memory, perception, places where truth is less so absolute. And I have an overall philosophy, I would say, as anecdotal empiricism, kind of this duality to it, where I seek, data-informed research, largely because of my background in data consulting. And then I try to pair that with my own exploration of family trauma and identity. Growing up, my mother as well struggled with addiction. So I think that largely informs my practice. And before this course, it was largely based in photography, film and digital processes, but I wanted to transition more to mixed media installations, and that's what I have to show you today. Okay, can everyone see the threshold? Hopefully the video or render is playing.
Yes.
Great. So How to Burn a Memory really explores the transmission of generational trauma rather through psychological means, through DNA or its physical manifestations in each individual. This is largely informed by research coming out of Holocaust survivors, where their children were shown to have significantly higher cortisol levels than the baseline population, even though the children themselves hadn't experienced the event, but the trauma of the Holocaust kind of ingrained itself genetically into those individuals, their children, and then their children's children as well. So this is a personal exploration of that with my own family, largely inspired by my grandfather who recently passed, and he basically gifted me a large collection of Super 8 films and color slide photographs. And then the series seeks to recontextualize and transform the archive to make more visible the distortion that occurs when memory itself travels through bloodline or a generation, not necessarily psychologically, but physically encoded in the DNA, where my grandfather, my mom, and myself all have a genetic predisposition to anxiety. And my grandfather himself was a temperamental, difficult man, and he often derided my mom. They were first generation immigrants from India to the United States, and there were the expectations of the perfect immigrant myth, if you will. And so he was very, very difficult on her, especially with school. He was a PhD. And as my mom grew older, these self-distortions that my grandfather kind of passed on to her ended up through coping mechanisms into an alcohol addiction that then kind of increased the baseline anxiety in myself, where having a parent that you don't know who they will be, 1 hour from the next, just keeps you constantly on edge. but really epigenetics research suggests that this is causation that moves in two directions. So not just, from the past down to me, but cyclical within each individual, where it was that predisposition to anxiety, to start with my grandfather, who himself was an anxious individual, that caused him to act with these anxious behaviors that then transferred and triggered the underlying anxiety in my mom. And then that underlying anxiety and the triggering or coping mechanism was through alcohol. And then that triggered anxiety in myself. So that's a quick kind of overview. And I want to move into the exhibition itself. Which has these archival images of my grandfather here on the left, and then surrounded by these other abstract images, which I can actually show down below here as well in greater detail. And what I found interesting about so many of these archival images, like this one with my mom on the far left specifically, was that they're happy, they're smiling, but there's kind of an unsettling nature behind it, kind of hidden anxiety that's aestheticized, where with the Super 8 footage, it shows the behind the scenes of when many of these images were taken, and you can see my grandfather, yelling at them or saying, pose this way. So it looks almost idyllic, but then the Super 8 footage and my mom's memory reveals a very different story behind the image itself. And then these more abstracted images shown here are largely inspired by showing my mom and my uncle the original archival footage for the first time in over 50 years, and trying to capture my view of them and then also their own perspective when seeing many of these images that I think they had actively tried to forget. And then in addition to the images themselves, as we jump through, there is a film loom in the center of the room, which is kind of the central piece where many of these images are actually taken from. And it has the original Super 8 footage that's then drawn across basically 3 horizontal bars to form somewhat of a contact sheet. And I wanted to show the original film itself that many of these images are inspired by, because in the contact sheet, it creates kind of the simultaneity to it. Where the memory itself is a physical entity, but also has a permeable nature to it. And I wanted all of these pieces to play together, where the memory itself or the physical experience has occurred, but it's still live, active, and occurring. Where, for instance, growing up with a very difficult mother, who you wouldn't know how to act 1 hour to the next, kind of physically changes you and imbues you for who you are for the rest of your life, as does growing up with, a very difficult, stern father. And then lastly, to close, there is a white background square at the far end of the exhibition space. And viewers or audience members are prompted basically to stare at any of the previous images, have it embedded in their retina, burned in their retina, and then they'll see something that's personal here, where it's one of the images, but no one else will see it. And I wanted there to be kind of a personal takeaway or reflective moment before individuals leave the exhibition space. And I think that is everything for my presentation. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Salvo, Rosa as well, who can join. and all of the other class members.
Thank you very much, Cory. Also with you, it was very interesting, the whole process we had. We've been talking a lot about activating archives, how archives can be somehow, can tell different type of stories. Also, depending on the dispositive or the tool that you use in order to activate them. And also this whole idea of playing within representation and abstraction. And I think in your work, this is like tension point. I really would like to, and I also enjoyed the process, for instance, of prototyping the loom, which actually you did a real prototype. Now you
Yeah.
show presentation, of course, you showed the 3D model, but you did a real prototype of the loom, which is super interesting. I wanted to know for the audience, like if you can tell more, how important was for you to really think about the different narratives that constitute the work in relation to the space, because you've been really working, thinking about the space, all of along the whole process.
Yeah, the space itself, I wanted to be kind of dark and minimal, with the highlight being the photographs themselves. I don't know that I mentioned that the images themselves are going to be transparency prints, so they all impact one another depending on the individual's point of view or where they're standing in the room. And again, it's supposed to kind of mirror like a non-linear pass of memory, where again with epigenetics research, it's kind of, what's the trigger point, the chicken and the egg. So it's supposed to be, again, non-linear, where you're not quite sure what caused what and how the different images necessarily play with each other. But I did want the individuals to be able to, physically move, walk around the room, and based on the orientation, kind of change your perspective for the contextualization of the images themselves, because I think that is a large piece of what I've been doing with the work is, again, seeing the happy, children, but then based on the context, they might not actually be happy. It might be a forced smile or whatnot. So I hope that answers the question.
Totally.
Any other questions?
I'd like to ask you, like, how much did the class help you? If there is like any comments that you remember or that helped you, like out throughout the process.
Yeah, I mean, Salvo was a lot of help. He pushed back on many ideas, and I think resulted in me being more thoughtful with the decisions I was making, and then the ones that I really wanted to stand behind, have the confidence to do so. I mean, one such example is that I think originally when Salvo and I were talking about the exhibition space, he envisioned it as this kind of white room, and I envisioned it as this dark room. So having someone like him as a feedback point, and then also just the physical nature, a lot of his exhibitions as well, I think was very useful. And then lastly, getting feedback and very interesting ideas that I wouldn't have even thought of otherwise from the classmates as well.
All right, great. Congratulations, Cory. Great presentation. And
thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Let's leave the word to the next participant to present. That is Chetna Vaidyanathan. Sorry for the presentation. For the pronunciation, I'm always very bad.
That's okay. I will share my screen. I think, Cory, you need to stop sharing.
Oh.
Okay, just gonna. Okay. Hi, everyone. I can't really see you right now, but I'm Chetna Vaidyanathan. I'm a filmmaker and photographer based in the UAE. Though my background is in films, more recently I finished a project with the National Museum of the UAE where I worked across 300 audiovisual installations. So I think coming into this masterclass, I've had this mindset of just being in a museum gallery-like space and thinking of this project more holistically. So the project that I will be presenting to you today is titled The Artistry of the Saraswati Veena. The Saraswati Veena is a 24-fretted stringed wooden instrument from Tanjavur, which is in the south of India. While instruments such as the sitar and violin have come to dominate the soundscape of Indian classical music, the veena has often occupied a more silent, quieter space, despite of its profound influence on Carnatic music, which is the classical music tradition of South India. Although images of Goddess Saraswati holding the veena found in so many Indian households, Hindu households, few people truly know the depth of the history, the tradition, and the musical lineage that gives the instrument its enduring resonance. While this masterclass has been a place where this idea began taking shape, I think growing up listening to my mom play the veena, this is her, by the way, and that's my sister. I think listening to her play the veena has sort of, I think I've had the seed for this project for a long time, and it's sort of just been stewing in my head for a very long time. So for me, this project is a visual exploration of memory, music, magic, and mythology, which is derived from the divine instrument of veena. I have a very rough hand-sketched exhibition proposal here. The way I see the space, I think the space sort of was always a part of this project from the very beginning, from when I derived the idea. I've envisioned how I want the visitors to go in a journey to experience this instrument not only on a surface level, but understand its history, the mythology aspect of it, the people who create the veena, and the people who play the veena. So as I explained, the path that I took was start with the myth, then we talk about the material and the making, and then the sound and the legacy of the instrument. Talking about the mythology aspect of it, the moment visitors enter the space, the first thing that I want them to experience is the instrument itself, layered fabrics, each containing a specific part of the veena. When aligned, when you look at it from the front, you see the veena as like big layered fabrics suspended from the wall, from the ceiling. In the middle, I envisioned to create an abstract experimental film, which would be based on Goddess Saraswati herself. It would be an experimental fictitious story of how a musician embodies a goddess. And this, I imagine, being projected onto a white silk sari, which you'll often find Goddess Saraswati adorning. Very initial concept of my film, which I'm yet to produce. So I'm going to move on to the things that I've started working on. From this space, visitors would be led to the main area of the exhibition, which is about the materials and the craft of making the veena itself. I had the privilege of immersing myself in a veena workshop for about 3 days back in March, and it was it was a truly eye-opening experience to see how an instrument like this could be made from scratch for people to just use their hands and not anything else. Very, very small tools were used, and I think that's something that needs to be translated into the exhibition space. I imagine a big installation of the wood scrapings that the artisans leave behind when they're chiseling the vina, the shape of the vina, and a big mound, as you can see in the image right here. Next to this installation, I imagine a single channel audiovisual installation of a film that I am developing at the moment. I would like to play this video for you. It's just an extract of a much bigger piece, which might end up coming up to about 10 minutes at this point.
Tanjore became a defining language of South Indian art and music. Shaped by the Cholas, the Nayakas, and Tanjore Marathas, the legacy deepened with every dynasty, through temples and paintings, and through the living tradition of the Saraswati Veena. Here, this sacred instrument takes its form, not in myth or legend, but in the quiet, steady labor of human hands. In Tanjore, the Saraswati Veena is not simply assembled, it is born. It all begins with the seasoned wood of jackfruit, chosen for its density and the way it holds resonance within its fibers.
So talking about the material and making, this, I think, over the course of this masterclass, this project has taken so many different shapes and forms. But I think immersing myself in that workshop, it just made me realize that the artisans are the core of this project, and there would be no Veena if it wasn't for their hard work and for the amount of artistry and time that they put into creating every single piece of Veena. The next part that I've been working on is, which I've created a mock-up of, is a photo wall where I've been, which would feature photos, not only archival, but also photos that I had the privilege of taking at the workshop, along with the musicians that I have been interviewing lately. This is a very, I would say, bare bones of a mock-up that I've just made at home. It is a 6.5 meter wide sari, gold silk sari that has been hand-stitched and condensed down to 2.5 meters. The idea was to evoke a sense of the fretboard of the Veena, which has 24 frets. I remember when Salvo and I were talking about this previously, this piece was meant to be a living, breathing part of the project on its own. And I feel like having the Veena shape sort of embodies that. And right at the center, you'll see Goddess Saraswati, because as a goddess of knowledge and arts, she is the one who's worshipped for every single skill that people have in the Hindu religion. So if you can see that the vertical lines that run through in the sari, the gold vertical lines, these are meant to be the metal frets that you see on the Veena, while the horizontal lines, which are on the top and the bottom, the black ones represent the wax resin mixture that is used to build the fretboard itself. And the notes that you see at the bottom, the letters, these are Saregama Pada Nisa, which literally translates to Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti Do in Western classical music. It has been written in Tamil because that's how you'd find notations in for a veena composition in Tamil. The next aspect that I wanted to share is a space that came pretty early on, and I wanted to develop it further for the exhibition. I've always imagined a curved space, a very intimate space that allows people to just enjoy the performance of a veena and no other instrument. So I've been shooting videos with musicians where all they do is play the veena and there is no accompanying instruments or any sort of vocals. So, and the idea is to record them in the space itself, within the environment, to create, for people to purely enjoy how the veena sounds in any single environment or atmosphere. So this space would be sort of, it would kind of evoke a 360-degree sound field. I wanted to give an example of one of the performance videos. This is my mother's teacher during her childhood, and she's 90 years old, and she still plays the veena. Her hands tremble, but she takes the time and effort to practice, even if it is for 20 minutes a day, and she still teaches. So I just wanted to play, I know we're short on time, but just a little excerpt. The next part of the exhibition would also exist as a continuation of traditions and the legacy of the tradition of the guru or the teacher passing on the knowledge of playing the veena to their students, which is quite an important tradition in Indian Carnatic music. And this space would have a single channel AV where you would see recordings of teachers and their students, and it's still a regular practice in today's world. And this would be and a live performance between a teacher and a student with a veena, where audience get to actively participate and enjoy the music. While this project has been taking many shapes and forms, a website was something that I wanted to create from the very beginning, because I wanted a space for people to come and learn about the instrument, or even if they're just curious about music in general. So the website came to be, and which is a work in progress. I've wanted to showcase photos and videos. So an example of one of the pages from the website is a photo wall where they can actively move things around, interact with the photos, and and also create a web version of the performance room that would exist in an exhibition space, but this would be more of a digital repository or a radio of sorts for people to just come and listen to veena recitals on a website. Carnatic music itself is quite vast. There are several ragas, which are various compositions. So among the various compositions, it becomes, this is an ongoing project where I will keep meeting new artists, new musicians, and new people who've had the Veena in their life for a very long time. Even if it's a simple composition, I do want to record more and more and keep adding it to the repository for people to just come and listen. Another aspect of the website, the final aspect, is a game that I have been working on. It's an interactive game for people to just kind of learn how the Veena is and how the different parts come together, and just kind of explore a bit more. So that comes to the end of the website itself, which I do believe would exist as a digital variation of the physical space that I've envisioned for the different parts of this project. And yeah, I would like to thank you all, and that's the end.
Thank you very much, Chetna. It was interesting for me to see like how you really took very, very seriously the whole conversation about start from something very small, a very small story. You start from an instrument and then you create a whole universe around it, follow like different paths. But I believe that one of the main goal of this project is really to transmit or like to endure a tradition that you don't want to get lost, right?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I was wondering also how, in this case, the project goes a bit beyond the instrument per se, so a sound making object, let's say, but as a device, no, that connects performance, image, different narratives, audience participation. So in the end, do you see that the Davina became the main tool for your transmedia project, basically?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like when I started this project, I did have a few core things that I wanted to work on, a film and the photography aspect. But I think over the course of our sessions, I really felt like there was more. And I feel like every day that I work on this project, I can keep pushing the extent of it. I don't know. Every day I learn something new. Like I was telling you, when I was looking at the archival videos, I couldn't find much about the Veena, which is kind of sad because it wasn't widely documented like other instruments. But I do feel like this is important, and I do need to continue working on this.
Yes, I agree. And now that you have kind of organized the works so much, I think it's gonna be easier for you to kind of keep adding and maybe pushing more the digital part or the conceptual, evocative part. Again, it's nice to see the work you've done and this framework, which I think is very important these days. When let's say, we have many visual projects. So those that have, a certain conceptual approach, organization, and structure that you are always welcome at some point to break and, reinvent. But at least, doing that effort, I think it's very important and inspiring. So thanks, Chetna. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And congrats. Okay. I don't know what time it is there, but it's your time, Harry.
Hello, it's really noisy here. I'm not sure if it's noisy in the background as well. Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you properly.
Okay, cool. Hello. Wait, I need to share my thing. Oh god. Okay, so I'm Harry, and this is my project, Future Archaeologies. If I can work out how to share the screen. Share screen. Okay, and then so this is a waste dump I found 2 years ago at 4,500 meters in the Himalayas. So I'm back here in Nepal this week or this month, trying to collect the waste dump from the top of the mountain. So I'm going to bring the waste down the mountain. I'm going to document it. I'll trace its supply chain, and then I'll make a big map of its origin. And I'm going to crush the waste into a cube and bind it with waste also found on the mountain. So it'll be like the artifact and the origin. This is a project I started 2 years ago. So this is 2.5 kilos of metal waste that I collected 2 years ago from the top of the mountain, brought it down the mountain, turned it into cameras, then went back up the mountain and took photos of the waste on the mountain with the cameras made out of the waste from the mountain. So this is a test negative that I got or made down in Pokhara. This is when I had slower speed film still. Sadly, I ran out of the slower speed film, so when I got to the top of the mountain, I had to use faster stuff, so all of the images are a bit overexposed, as you can see. But it's almost, I'm back now, so I'm going to do it again. It's almost like the mountain didn't want to reveal its secrets to me at this moment. I had to work harder for it. Yeah, so first time I went up the mountain as well, I kept spying these crushed moths up and down the path. So they're called gasolina moths, and they're linked to shapu, which is seasonal hyperacute pannivatus, a mysterious disease first discovered in 1975 in Nepal. So it's intraocular, which means that its one eye tends to be affected. I think it was 238 cases in 2023. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure of children went completely blind in one eye. So if you don't do something within a week, if you don't respond within a week, you go completely irreversibly blind in that eye. There's a lot of mystery surrounding it because it's only found in Nepal and it's quite under researched and funded. They often find these orange barbed setae, which like protect the eggs on the back of the moth, the female moths. They often find them in the eye, and sometimes they find there's a pustule forms and like bacteria forms in the pustule. And so they're sort of not entirely sure the origin, but it's very much the project's looking at blindness, and there was an insect that blinds you on the mountain. It was pretty crazy. So it all started 2 years ago. I started collaborating with a scrapyard in Kumali. So every day I would go, I would collect some waste, I would pay for some scrap, I'd make it into cameras, then I'd initially place it into the waste, and then I started throwing it into the waste throwing the cameras into the waste to try and represent the way via which they were created, hence the light flow in this image. This continued, and I started to make like big prints. So this is a gum bichromate print, which I sensitized paper through waste, multiple layers of waste, into a UV exposure chamber. And then created these large format prints. But the way you develop out a gum bichromate image is through brushing at the surface with a brush and water. So I almost felt like an archaeologist, but of the future, which is where the project title came from. I'm here again in Nepal trying to collect the waste. Here on the left, where the stone is, I believe is where the waste dump is, but I went 2 weeks ago. As you can see, it's extremely snowy. It's unseasonably snowy. They're experiencing unusual weather for this time of year, as they have been. It's been getting a lot more snowy. I've got a month now until the monsoon properly hits, although we're kind of in a pre-monsoon. So hopefully I'll be able to extract the waste. I'm doing like a pseudo sci-fi speculative narrative to accompany it as well. So a story where a collector is sent from the future in a world in which a hotel has been built on, a skyscraper has been built on the mountain, disturbing the moths from their location and causing them to swarm, sending everyone in the world blind. This collector is like sent from the future to kind of work out the origin of the moth, following this map, which fragments that exists of, and that map will be the map that I create during the project. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now and let you watch this. Thanks.
We rely heavily on insects for the systems that sustain existence, buzzing along in the background day and night, pollinating the plants around us. Largely, our focus has been on bees, and other daytime visitors in our increasing awareness of dwindling insect numbers. However, moths have a massive part to play in this natural system too. I had noticed these yellow bins all up and down the path. They were new. I hadn't seen them last time. A local man walked past, pointing at the structure of the bin I was filming. "I made that," he said, proudly, before promptly digging his hand into the pile of waste encased in the yellow metal shell. Each part of the system thought they were doing the right thing. Trekker disposing their waste in the bins provided. Bin builder disposing of the waste as is conventional at such altitude. This is the result. I wondered if the toxins from the plastic being released so high in the atmosphere might further impact how the fumes affect the environment. It turns out that the soot released at such altitude can settle on glaciers, snow and ice, reducing their reflectivity, accelerating melting. Dangerous in the short term for heightened risks of avalanches, and for the long term through melting of alpine glaciers and snowy peaks. This, alongside the smoke and heavy chemicals settling in valleys due to specific wind systems in mountains, as well as inevitable leaching of chemicals into the environment directly at burn sites. The environment absorbs it, but not without consequence. I suppose it has all come from nature, and, like all things, in some way inherently is nature at its core. It seems more like a cancerous mutation, though, than an exciting new bloom of existence.
Yes, that's what I am sharing of it today. I shot that as of 2 weeks ago. I'm going back up the mountain tomorrow, and I'm going to be there for a couple of weeks. Hopefully, if the weather's okay, I'll be able to start the extraction. Otherwise, I guess it'll have to be after monsoon. I don't know when it will be. But I've got this speculative narrative on the go at the same time, so I will find things to do in the time if I'm not able to get that out. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing that. That was intense.
Thank you, Harry. So maybe you can say a bit more. I would like to know a bit more about the whole process to come from like the story that you found out a few years ago when you were working on the project, and now like the fictionalized narrative that you're bringing, starting from the moth as a metaphor in a way, and also how you want to somehow bring that experience of blindness
Mhm.
the space, because you also had like some reflections about it.
Totally. Well, I mean, I guess I'll start with your last point. Because we were talking in the last meeting or whatever about some neutral density filters, some neutral density like goggles that I make, which will be gravity biased. So as you enter the space, it will be super bright, and so you'll want as much like sunglass as possible. And then as you walk through, it will get darker and darker, and so you'll have to adjust your vision, push up to like reduce the intensity of the ND, allowing more light to get through. But in doing so, because it's weighted, you'll become over encumbered in time. So you're trying to go through the more you go through the exhibition, the less you can see. So you have to actively participate in order to see, but the more you try to participate, the more tired you become, so you become over encumbered and then have to let go, much like the clarity that we let go of in everyday existence, I think. And I guess the metaphor of the moth, I found the moth, and then I knew it was something, but you were the one who got really obsessed with it, and we're like, there's something in this, look for the poetry. And I think it's like, yeah, we've ruined the sight of nature, and nature's taking our sight in turn. So it's, yeah, there's a sad poetry to it, I guess. But as you said, I didn't want to take away from the meaning of the experience, because people ultimately, 200 and something people went blind in 2023. So I was quite, well, I guess, conscious when you first said, why not make something, like speculative out of it, that it would take away from the meaning of that. But I think it makes it more accessible, if anything, through making a speculative narrative, I hope.
Yeah, I agree. The speculative part is interesting, no, as a way of furthering the project, because on one end it will help you, like, I think, engage more, and use, like the synthesis of photography, or this mixed media presentation, and on the other, I think there is like a lot of things we can explain, but also a lot of things we cannot explain, especially in places like Nepal mountain, where there is also a specific energy to it, which I think is affecting you also at the moment, because the speed of the presentation was amazing.
Yeah, that's positive in a good way or a negative way. Should I do it again?
No, very good. I was able to follow everything, so very good. No, I'm joking, but I'm joking, but I think like maybe writing down notes now that you're there, or like and investing in this speculative part can really like bring the project to a certain completion and depth. Okay, great. Thanks so much, Harry.
Thank you very much, Harry.
Stay with us until the end so we can celebrate. And okay, so the next participant is Nika Petković. I hope I pronounced your name correctly this time. It was easier. Welcome, Nika.
Hi, Giuseppe. Hi, Salvatore, and hello, guys. I will share my screen now. Just a second. Okay. I hope you can see it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So once again, good afternoon. My name is Nika, and I'm a researcher and artist currently living in Zagreb, in Croatia, where I work mainly as a film programmer. My background is in film studies, and this is something that has always influenced somehow the way I look at photography and the way I produce images. I would say both in theory as well as in practice. I'm interested in this intersection between still and moving images, and in the possibility of thinking about the moving image as an expanded photograph, especially through its relation to stillness and duration. So I'm very grateful for having had the chance to take part in this masterclass, because it really opened my eyes to where contemporary photography is going, and especially through looking at everybody's work and seeing how expanded storytelling can take many different forms. So the project I have started developing is entitled The Cost of Labor. I was interested in exploring the idea of labor in contemporary societies, or more precisely, the idea of labor as a pledge for a better and more prosperous life. The starting point for this idea comes from a personal story, which is the story of my father's profession, actually. He's a mechanical engineer, and for most of his working life, he worked as a chief engineer on container ships. Before retiring, his work took him across the world, but this also meant that he spent a large part of his life away from home. His job enabled him to travel the world, but he was not able to travel in this romantic and touristic sense, let's say. It left very little room for sightseeing, and he was actually always traveling through the infrastructure of global trade, but more as a worker inside the system. It is also important to know that throughout his life, he was a passionate amateur photographer, and he constantly photographed his life away from home. So ports, ships, harbors, machines, landscapes, and cities. Here's a short insight into a part of the archive that I've been working it. So I started to think of his photographic archive as an archive of distance. It is not only a family archive, and it is not only a record of travel, but more an archive of a life lived between ports, across oceans, and away from domestic space. It shows somehow the world, but also this impossibility of inhabiting that world. Later in my life, I mean, whenever I travel to port cities shaped by global trade, let's say so, I also photograph them. So this, when I started working with my archive as well, I realized that this created an important contrast within the idea of this project. So on one side, a view from my own position of a person who moves within the world of this global circulation. And on the other side, my father's position of the worker who sustains this global circulation. So starting from this personal narrative, the project gradually expanded toward a more, let's say, to a more wider inquiry. In other words, how global capitalism produces alienation. As I begin looking more carefully through his archive, I noticed that one motif kept returning, and this is a motif of palm trees. So at first it seems almost banal, but as the palm tree is an image we know from screensavers and postcards, and they often symbolize escape and paradise, let's say. But in the context of his archive, the palm tree became less a symbol of pleasure and, I would say, more a symbol of distance. So in this sense, the palm tree became for me one of the visual narratives of the project. It allowed me to think more about this idea of displacement and alienation, and this is where the project began to shift visually and conceptually. I started thinking about fragmentation, about fragmented geographies, memories, about fragmented time. And this is why transmedia storytelling became important for developing this project. I do not see this work, even though it is still in an initial phase, only as a photographic series, but I imagine it as a fragmented constellation of materials. So the archive, my own photographs, text, moving image sequences, and soundscape. I started developing a possible exhibition setup composed of several connected elements. So the first element consists of 2 video installations conceived as fragmentary essays. One video is based on palm trees that I started recording in different locations in my hometown, which is also a harbor city. And I will show you now a short preview of this video. I hope you can hear the sound. While the other video is an assemblage of home movies, mainly Super 8 films, that my father shot when he was only beginning his career. And I will also show you just a short preview of that. So in the exhibition space, I imagined these two videos projected on one screen, hanging in the middle of the gallery, with one video projected from each side. So in this way, the viewer would encounter two different but connected, in a way, temporalities. Another element would be a 16-channel sound installation, which I hope you could hear in the first video, which is based on soundscapes recorded at port terminals. So this loading, unloading, and storing of large containers from cargo ships would create hopefully a disorientating and alienating environment. I'm interested in how this soundscape could affect the viewer and translate this invisible pressure of circulation and labor into the space of the exhibition. So rather than telling the story in a linear way, the potential exhibition would allow the viewer to move through different fragments while exploring ideas of distance and displacement. The project is still in development, but through the masterclass, I started to understand its possible structure more clearly. And I was interested in exploring how to work with the archive without simply illustrating it. So this is why I would like also possibly in a form of a future book, a photo book, to create this dialogue between my father's archive and mine in order to explore the ideas between contemporary labor and its consequences. So this would be it. Thank you. And feel free, of course, to reach out.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Nika.
Nika.
I think that something that is interesting about the process that we went together through this work is that, it took some time to understand how to really work within this beautiful, amazing archival material of your father in connection with what you were doing more or less unconsciously also, right? Over the last years. And I think it's interesting to see how then you found like a sort of symbolic element in order to put this two views together. And also to expand it, like you started from a very personal story, to expand it to a very like universal but also political type of topic, which indeed, of course, goes has several references also in the history of photography, but at the same time, I think that you found like the specificity that allows you to really narrate the story in a way that stays very personal, time goes in a direction that is universal. And I would like to know of the audience, because we had a lot of discussions about it. I would like to know like how finding this sort of anchor point, let me call it like this, affected the way you started to look at your father archives.
When you say anchor point, you mean
Like this narrative that you're bringing in the project, yes.
Well, I mean, I think that I started to look at his archive in a less emotional way. I don't know if I'm clear when I say it, because whenever you look at archival images at vernacular photographers, even, I mean, private albums, I mean, especially if you know the person, you sometimes start connecting, let's say, parts of your life and so on. While, I mean, the idea, if I can say, when I started actually connecting different parts into the whole story, and when I really realized that I want to work with this archive and somehow activate it, was when I mean, it will maybe sound strange, but I went on a long trip, on my first trip to China, which is a place where my father often traveled and worked there. And somehow this experience made me think much more about this photographic archive in a different way, from a different perspective, not only from an emotional and intimate way, from like these are photos that my father took, but also on a more let's say sociological level. So I don't know if I explained well, but yes, this is somehow something that activated my need to work with it.
Thank you very much, Nika.
Thank you, Salvatore, for all your really precious advices and for encouraging me to keep on working with this idea.
It was a pleasure, of course.
Congrats, Nika. I think there's a lot you can, to build on top of this. So it's nice to see how maybe like finding an angle or one main idea can then create a context and leverage all the possibilities. Congrats, and congrats on the presentation.
Thank you.
Now I leave the word to Yixi, Tian. Welcome,
Hello.
Yixi. Hello.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Yes, and I share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So for my practice, I want to introduce the whole system and also the practice that I have been developing in this class that also include of it. So I want to say my art, what I want to do is follow this principle, is first a concrete person, then a problem. So all of my projects, they're all built on this principle based on field work, long-term relationships, and I want to add more multiple voices to show the project. So, and I have been developing it in 3 directions. One is my practice and also something I developed in this class. And the second is I also organized some workshop that to share my methodology in very simple steps and I shared them with the public. So I think everyone, the participants, they also can learn how to do this in their own life. And I also extract some important concept to write my thesis. And this is like a experimental direction. I also use a post reading the approach from Chinese traditional medicine. And I just want to mention at the beginning of this class, I tried to research Chinese traditional medicine, but I thought that this is something far from my own practice, my methodology, because that is a research-based art. But for me, I think I'm a practice-based art. So also in this process, our teacher told me like I can use something from traditional Chinese medicine that combine it with my photography, my art. So that it also can it also works to make a new project. So I followed this way. In this class, my project title is Being With, because I think nowadays in our society or art world, we always use people like just cases or data or something just for research. But I want to turn this mind in different way. If that is how do we deeply see and understand the existence of another person in art? Can I use all approaches, including photography or the other medias that can describe just one concrete person, rather than making them just symbols? So that is something I want to research and describe now. And based on this, because I also have a residency in France, so I found two women. They also my friends. I met in the residency, but they are very kind, and we have many things like favorite things. We also can do that together. So in this process, I also took some photos for them, and that is over 8 months. I just use photography to understand them and to try to use a visual form to describe who they are and how they live. Yeah, and like this is a second woman. And the next step, I try to use a post reading to understand them deeply, because photography, we always use photography outside to see the people just on surface. But post reading, that's something from Chinese medicine. I can use this to read and understand someone's body the inside body. Like if I put my finger to understand their post reading, and there is a very systemic knowledge in the Chinese medicine. Like this is a very pose of nodding. Nodding is the second woman, and the wiry pose is a specific term in Chinese medicine. That means your pose is like a wiry. It's very tight. So it means you maybe often on prayer and you have a stressful life. So I think that's an entrance of her body. I tried to use some old archives and the photos from her and to describe her pose. And it's like what reasons cause her body like this. So like I found she's a mother for the small baby. So and she also take care for her family, and I think that is the reason why she feels happy, but also feels stressful. So I try to use this element to describe the life of her. So this is all the test and something I tried to use the different materials to describe this specific person. And the right picture is is an installation. I also tried to use something not just images that can also describe a person, that how I feel, how I understand from their life. So I think maybe this is not a very complex project. It's just I try to use many approaches and materials, just surveys to describe concrete person. And that maybe can resist the trait that people are always use the like symbols in art. Yeah, and the fine part is I just want to show I also use a connection and care through photography. This is important things I try to share with the public, and I cooperated this with a Chinese University Association. So there are many people, they are not artists or someone in art school, so they also give me very great feedbacks from this process, like how we can use photography to connect and to see people around them. Yeah, this is just a example from the participants. So that is all. I just want to use this way to say like art should truly save people and reach them until one day we solve problem together, and that is my hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yixi. I think also in your case was interesting, like the process of you started with like a more, let's say, documentary idea of approaching like people that practice traditional Chinese medicine in the West, like how this unfolds. And then you went in this direction that became like very much case study based in a way, but also a bit, pass me the term, speculative somehow, or like encompassing like different layers to your story. I wanted to know more about how did it change your perception of from the initial question you had about like the traditional Chinese medicine after the process of like going through it and coming to this, for instance, like this case with this collage that you made.
Yeah, because at the beginning I don't have a clear direction. That's what is my art, what I really want to do. So because my previous project is about Miao doctors, that is from my mother, and I follow the doctors in the deep mountains, as you know. So the first idea in my mind is maybe I can continue to do these things when I was in the Netherlands. But when I try to do this project, I think that is not. This is something not I want to do because I want to care for other people, not I want to research on medicine. So I try to, but I also learned Chinese medicine in Amsterdam. So I also learned the post reading and some old approach from Chinese medicine there. Then I also thought about maybe I can use the old approach in art, maybe combine the old approach with the new media. They can have some interesting things that I also can care for concrete person. Yeah, and also in this class, I think you show us many different approaches that really make me open my mind, because at the beginning I just think maybe I also need photography and I don't know what different media I need and if that is the right way. But nowadays I think I got a new idea. It's like I can use everything if that's suitable to my approach, and I can be brave to use them and choose them. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Yixi, and for sharing your approach. I think we've been talking a lot in this conversation, like in the past few hours, about like the importance of having a concept or ideas but it's also nice to see other approaches because there is no right or wrong, and I think that you can approach a visual project in the most diverse and personal way. So thanks for pointing that out very clearly. And
Yeah.
best wishes for following with the project.
Yeah, I will. Nowadays, it's just the test.
Yeah, well done. Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yixi.
The last presentation, if I'm not wrong, it's Agostina Cerullo. Can you hear me, Agostina?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you. Agostina Cerullo.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Let me share.
I still have a bit of Argentine accent.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, my name is Agostina Cerullo, and this is Unmarked Ground. It began as a video essay exploring displacement, restriction, ritual, and body as a site of tension and release. And over time, it became a sort of short film. And then it started feeling like something that not only wanted to exist on a single screen, but that wanted to take more space. The project started from personal experiences around identity, migration, and the feeling of existing between places. I grew up around different languages, different expectations, different versions of belonging, depending on where I was geographically. And a lot of the work comes from trying to understand what happens when identity becomes something that is constantly negotiated. The process was very intuitive at first. I wasn't working with a narrative. I was collecting fragments of notebooks, conversations, symbols, voice recordings, photographs, and a lot of the images also came from dreams and symbols. And as the project developed, certain images kept on coming back to me, like spirals. That was a very
I want to begin
important
with
part.
something simple. Belonging. Or maybe the absence of it.
So that was a short clip of the video essay. I feel like I should move faster, and this is another one that is coming now that it kind of introduces the emotional foundation of the work. So one of the central tensions of the project became this idea that belonging is constantly performed and negotiated.
Shaped by migration. Home was never fixed. It shifted with language, with accent, with paperwork. Belonging could be granted or withdrawn. Because of that, I learned early that belonging isn't only something we feel. It's also something that gets decided. Socially, politically, historically.
I then became interested in how the body absorbs that pressure emotionally and physically, and how certain tensions remain after movement or transition. And a lot of the close-up portraits function almost like emotional landscapes rather than portraits of specific people. And the gestures kind of stay open and suggest constraint, grief, resistance, protection. At a certain point, I realized that the project no longer wanted to exist only as a film. And so it started moving into a multi-channel installation. I was experimenting with different screens and how they interact with each other. I also had the chance to show my work in an exhibition recently where I started experimenting more with space and fragmentation. This is part of what was the short film, and it later started getting fractured as I was trying to play with kind of like the contrast in between these emotions and different kind of distances as well. For the exhibition proposal, I wanted to introduce the idea of installation that goes through 3 different rooms. Kind of at first, when the viewers enter the space, they're faced with a question, and then later with these 2 hanging images from the ceiling that block the space, but in between there is a corridor that is made with papers and ropes, and it feels very restricted. And while you go through the corridor, you can see the screen, one of the screens that is at the end, so the sound is already a part of the immersive experience. Then you get to this space where there are around 6 to 7 screens. Excuse the AI, I don't know how to make render images, but here would be the video installation. And after, there will be a room to record kind of your experience, or if you want to leave any memories that you might have after going through that. And then I'm going to show kind of where the video is at the moment. Aceptada, no aceptada, radicada, racializada, marginada. El pertenecer es decidido por otros, políticamente, racialmente. Aquí no soy de aquí, allí no soy de allí. Instead of showing the almost ready short film that I had, I thought that I would show where the work is currently at, even though I'm still in the editing process. I'm like editing and testing how the different screens and kind of the overlapping voices and languages work together. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for watching.
Thank you very much, Agostina. So with you, it was like a journey because, you know, the project started with like a very specific idea, and then it evolved, becoming like intervention of switch on the video installation with some elements in the space that also create like a sort of experience-based way to receive the work, to look at the work. And you also had, you're also having the possibility to test it practically in the space. Maybe you can say more about the exhibition that you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was part of this exhibition last week. It's called PhMuseum Woman on Stage, and it's kind of a cooperative that amplifies and celebrates female voices in the creative industry. They invited me to be part of the event, so there was live music, and I was kind of designing the set of the exhibition. So we played with light as well, which I haven't shown here, but within these big paper structures that I created and fractured the images, there was some light coming like behind them that was creating these shadows of squares and like rectangles all around the space. So yeah, it was kind of like playing still with that idea of like being trapped, but at the same time I didn't want to bring it too far in a space where there was like live music and people were meant to be enjoying the space as well. But yeah, I think it was really good to kind of experiment and like learn how the project can grow into space. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You did a very good job. It's a nice way to end the presentation of MEDIAE, I think, no, Salvatore, this way, because I think sometimes, when we think of a works that employs or starts with photography, we tend to think in a way that, not always has in mind the three-dimensionality of an exhibition space or that of a photo book that is another exhibition space. While if you think about it, that's how photography in the end circulates a lot. So you can start wherever you want, but at some point I think that challenging yourself in thinking of your work in a physical dimension can really help you complete it, bring ideas, and then the beauty of this masterclass, see how the static image can dialogue with the moving images, with sounds, with light and structure, and yeah. So well done, and well done to everybody. Thanks for taking the time to present today, and yeah, please, Salvo.
No, I just wanted to say what I said at the beginning. Thank you very much for your hard work. I think it was very visible from your presentation that you've been engaging a lot in the last month. And again, what is interesting for me is very much like how you were able to let yourself go a bit and to try to expand the way you see your work, the way you see the medium as well, but also to enjoy the process, because I think that is what matters the most. So on the side, there is the storytelling part, which is very important, like how to expand, how to add complexity, how to come up with something that can go even deeper. But on the other end, there is also the prototyping, the materiality of it, etc., etc. So we've been following these two parallel lines, and I think all of you did it different ways, and this also shows the richness of approaches that can coexist also in a masterclass like this. And for me, it was a real pleasure to guide you. I didn't do much, but I was guiding you and having amazing conversation with all of you. So that was like also enriching for me, and also getting to know your project, pieces of the world that I had no idea about, learning a lot about your stories, whether personal, political, social, or whatever. That is always very important for me. And I hope I managed somehow to get into your stories as much as I could.
Okay. So the masterclass ends here, but there is still, I hope you can kind of start, finding ways, some of you have already done, to exhibit the work in real places. there's gonna be new challenges like the budget and or how to bring things here and back. But it's part of, I think, a beautiful process and you know, also of a privileged process, I think, at some point, because there is a lot of responsibility, you know, in this work, a lot of, you know, like approaches, and there is the political part, as Salvatore was saying, but it's also like, I think, a beautiful opportunity at some point to be able to reach the level for which you will exhibit it and share it with the public. So that's my wish for you. And well, thanks to everybody who listened to the streaming. See you next Thursday for a third presentation from another masterclasses. Stay tuned. Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Don't go away. Don't go away.